What's up with it, King? What's up with it, Queen? Y'all already know who it is. It's your big bruh, Demont Pope, a.k.a. Mr. Purpose over Pointless Excuses. Yeah, look, y'all already know what I do. Y'all know what my job is. Every week, my job is to bring you value on top of value on top of value. All my guests do the same. We inspire, we motivate, we educate, and ultimately, we empower. This week, there's nothing different. Look, I got a very special guest waiting in the background. Without any delay, without further ado, I would like to introduce to some and present to others my bro, Mr. Curtis Price. Yeah. What's up with it,
good,
sir?
How you doing, bro?
Man, I'm doing well, bro. Welcome to the King Speaks podcast, man. We've been trying to get this one for a minute, right?
I know. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to be on this platform with you, man. I always, I see what you're doing. It was so good to link up with you too, and finally actually like really connect at the Level Up tour and in Atlanta. So I'm really excited to be here and to talk to your folks and leave with some good information, man.
Man, I'm excited, man. I enjoyed your speech at the Level Up tour. It was phenomenal. You taught me some things.
Good.
And I need to apologize to my listeners in advance if I sound a little different. They like, well, why you sound like that? Look, I've been a little under the weather, but I'm back on top of things. I'm almost at 100%, not quite yet, but we must keep pushing, right? So without any delay, hey, Curtis, why don't you let us know exactly who is Curtis Price and what is it that you do, bro?
Cool. Yeah. Well, my name Curtis Price. So I had a very interesting kind of upbringing. My grandparents opened up one of the first health food stores between DC and Baltimore back in 1971. The little shop was called Laura Health Food. It literally grew, and we still are actually in business. My mom still runs the store. She does deliveries now for kind of her close customers. But we've had a health food store in the family for close to 55 years. So I really had a very unique kind of upbringing. I grew up around vitamins and organic food, literally before it became fashionable. Even back in the day, moving around, I actually ended up going to high school. My pops was in the military. Big shout out to all the vets out there and all our armed service folks. I'm a proud Army brat.
I'm Air Force, man, but we'll get along.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. So my grandfather is also retired Army, and I moved around a bit. So I actually moved to Italy and for high school. And it was kind of at this time, I would still come back to the States to visit my grandparents because I had to get my gear. Because over there in Italy, you ain't have the J's. You know what I mean? So every summer, no, none. So every summer I come back home, and the health food store started to kind of take on a different vibe where now I'm looking at protein powders, and I'm looking at from a high school sports standpoint. I used to run track. I was actually champion in Italy for the high hurdles and the 300-meter hurdles. So, just looking at the weight room and looking at vitamins, and it kind of took a different role in my life personally. Just to fast forward, ended up going to Delaware State, my first semester of college, and then transferred to Bowie State. So all my HBCUs out there stand up. And on campus, it was kind of funny because I was eating organic chips, and I had, my dorm room had snacks of organic stuff. And a lot of folks didn't even realize, especially like my suite mates, I would just tell them it's like healthy. And so they wouldn't eat it. They wouldn't, the midnight munchie raid, they wouldn't mess with my snacks, what I mean? Because they just thought they were healthy, but they tasted just like, regular chips or what have you. But on campus, I was kind of like a healthy go-to guy. I pledged Omega Psi-Phi, and so a lot of my chapter bros, they always wanted like, the hook up on Yohimbe and and ginseng and other folks on the yard, echinacea for cold and flu. I'd always have vitamins in my dorm room and everything. And so once I graduated college, again, just elevating my family store, because I was still I still be working, family's business. I saw your kids, bigging you up, just that entrepreneurial, there's no break, like the store was open Monday through Saturday, and, I would work. And when I graduated, these Dr. Atkins bars kind of hit the market. But folks weren't buying like, 1 bar or like 5 bars. Man, folks, bro, they were walking out like boxes of bars. And I was just looking at that like, we got all these bars, we got all this stuff in the shop, but like nobody's walking out with like 8 boxes, 10 boxes. And I literally went from like a shelf of product to like an end cap. And I actually was able to convince my grandmother to let me carve out like this section in the store of just low carb products, right? Okay. I put a key on the cash register so I could track the sales of the low carb products that was moving. And needless to say, I opened up literally one of the first low carb, low sugar stores in the country. Wow. This was, I got to even do this was a while ago. This was like 2005, 2003-ish. But opened up literally one of the first low carb stores in the country. And it was like after that, the Atkins diet like blew up. And so the store took off. I was on, we didn't have YouTube back then. We didn't have all this social media, but I was literally on CBS, Fox, because where I'm at in the DMV, all the news anchors are right here. DC is 20 minutes from where I'm at. So it was kind of wild. I would actually have news affiliates coming into my store to film it just for B-roll. So they would have a shelf of low carb stuff. So if they were running an Atkins story, they had B-roll footage. So by having the store, I was just getting like, interviewed and everything. And it was kind of in the store. At this point, my father became diabetic. And with him being diabetic, knowing that diabetes, my late grandmother, his mom, actually passed away when he was little due to complications with diabetes. And he basically, essentially grew up really without his mom. And prior to her passing, her foot was amputated due to diabetes. So I've always had, with the store, I really started to look at not just a diet for losing weight, but the real health implications of cutting out sugar, cutting out processed carbohydrates, and just really cleaning up your eating. And I say that because I grew up in a health food store. So there were products that I was consuming that were organic. Some were vegan, vegetarian. I mean, I had access to all of this. But when I started to really look at the nutritional labels and having this low carb, low sugar kind of mindset, high protein, it's when kind of the real light bulb went off of like, wow, like it's organic, but it's junk. It's not healthy. It's just perceived because it's clean. So it's kind of like you can have a Oreo cookie, or you can have a Newman's organic which is like their knockoff of an Oreo cookie. Okay. They both pretty much have the same amount of sugar. It's just one's clean junk food and the other is just yucky junk food. You know what I mean? Just the ingredient makeup. But when you look at, you flip that thing over and look, they both still have 20, 30 grams of sugar, carbs that you're consuming. So it really kind of flipped my whole perception of like this health food world that I grew up in. And like, I'm just thinking it's healthy. That once I really started looking at labels, and it really changed my whole perception of like health and the health food industry as well. Yeah. So that's kind of somewhat of the background, which led me into writing a book to really for our folks to have a more personal, down-to-earth understanding of what I feel out here is a very overcomplicated thing. We get too caught up in the labels. I'm a vegan, or I'm a vegetarian, or I'm a this, or I'm a that, where if you really don't understand food, especially processed packaged food, you can be a vegan, you can be a vegetarian, and you're still unhealthy. You know, there's a lot of overweight vegetarians. So I basically came up with this concept of the book called The Itis Revealed. And I look at, within the book, kind of a history book. So I look at sugar's role through history, and how sugar was the one raw material that really fueled the slave trade. Wow. How it's still enslaving the Black and brown community today, and then how you can actually break free from its shackles and live out.
Wait a minute. So wait a minute, man. We getting the history lesson right here, because excuse me, we getting the history lesson right here, right? So let me back you up.
Yeah.
Now we it's very clear that you're the health guru, right? We're gonna call you the health guru because you grew up. You grew up eating health foods, man. Like you grew up eating good. Like, and then you said something about the Oreo cookie as opposed to the other cookie, where you said one was just clean and the other one was dirty. Like, I don't think we've ever heard it put like that. Like, well, I'm not the only one. My listeners probably have never heard it put that way. Like you're opening our eyes and our mind to a whole different way of thinking. Like I never looked at the candy as dirty sugar, nasty sugar.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I didn't know it was clean sugar, bro.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, you know, so two things quick. It's like, if, you know, you could smoke and have yucky crack, or you could have really good fair trade organic crack. You're still smoking crack. You know, you're still eating sugar. Now, that's not to be confused with a sugar that's going to be naturally found in a pineapple and an apple. And, you know, there's naturally occurring sugar. And then there's food that is packaged by a man or a woman that is loaded with sugar. The other interesting thing too, bro, is like, when I was young, the health food store, you know, my family shop, you couldn't, and I mean, I grew up going to like trade shows. Even in the book, I got pictures with the late Mr. Miyagi. I would just run into just different, because he would be representing some kind of like line. I got picked, my brother and I, like, we're younger, like, I literally was in this health food industry, still am. But I tell folks too, like, a Whole Foods couldn't have existed 40 years ago, 30 years ago. And I say they couldn't have existed. They were probably open, right? But when you go into a Whole Foods today, if you don't understand how to shop, you still buying a bunch of garbage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the amount of processed products didn't exist back then. You know, so I grew up in a very strict, strict household. I mean, I would have vitamins every day. We don't have I give my kids like these gummy bear vitamins. I'm like, man, I grew up with like the wafer, because my grandmother was like, no Flintstones were coming in the house, because they probably had artificial coloring. I was taking these joints that were like, you know, they just didn't taste like they do today. But, you know, when you look at the stores, the access of products, they just wouldn't have existed back then. So if you don't understand, really, that goes into that, you know, there's, you know, junky sugar, you know, bad sugar. And that's part of the somewhat of the facade of like, okay, I'm in this health food store now and everything's healthy. I'm putting this hat on of a vegetarian, and now the health fairy came down and deemed me healthier than other people, when in all actuality, if you really don't understand food, how it's, you know, what you're really consuming, you know, you're not gonna really be that healthy. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So you've taken all of your childhood experiences, right? And I think you said your family owned the stores since what, the 50s or something like that?
1971. So like
71.
50,
look at me.
Yeah, like 54 years.
54 years. So you took all of that experience growing up, eating healthy, eating differently, right? You took all of that experience, compiled your knowledge into a book, right? That Itis Revealed book, right?
Yep.
And that's where you go in depth. I want to point that book out as a point of reference, because in case they don't get all the details on this, I want them to know where they can get the rest of the information at.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Excuse me. Let me ask you this. Okay, what was the specific inspiration or the motivation behind choosing the career path? We know you're the health guru, but then we know now the author, and then now we know you are also a speaker, right? We just shared the stage at the Level Up Tour conference. So what was your main motivation that you would say is behind that? Would it be the fact that the diabetes ran in the family? Would it be the amputation that just said, hey, I'm going to do something about this? Like, what was that inspiration or that motivation, Curtis?
You know, I think that part of it is actually just, I believe that I'm here for a reason. I think God put me here for a reason. The way I grew up, the understanding of food and health food and vitamins and all this stuff, I just want to help people. So I really come from a place of knowledge that I can talk to pretty much anybody, any walk of life, and help them with their health and wellness, you know, however that might look. I also opened up one of the first CrossFit strength conditioning facilities in the DMV area. That was like 13 years ago. We're actually reopening. It's called Fraternal Elite Fitness, but I've fully encompassed like health, strength conditioning, all of this. And then growing up the way I did, the book kind of serves as like, I dug back into the past to give people a different peek into the health, into sugar, like trying to shake it up where it's not just okay, do this and lose 20 pounds in a week, or like some quick fix, say this is the new, the new ism or the new thing to like really, we have a real epidemic like within our communities. Like it's really bad. And I mean, I don't think that people really understand the severity of we're eating ourselves to death.
Come on, man.
And that's why I personally feel too, like COVID had such an impact within the Black and brown community, because if you're overweight, if you have hypertension, if you have diabetes, your immune system, everything is already compromised. Wow. And now you have this disease that comes in, boom. And that's why it had such an impact within our community, like it did. Yeah. So, you see kids, you see how, I mean, people are really overweight, and it's not a vanity aspect. There's this line too of like, if you're full figured, by all means, if you genetically grew up, or you are this kind of, or if you want to gain certain weight, look a certain way, there's all kinds of layers and levels to it. But the overall, like we're really unhealthy, and so I guess going to, what you were saying is like, I just have this like understanding of food, of health food. I could sit and chop it up with anybody and kind of add in. And I've been doing this, I guess, for so long that anytime I'm sitting with folks, and that's what was like, I need to write a book. Like, because I could just sit there and just, oh, well, you know what, you should. And my mom's just like it too. Like, oh, well, you should take this and this. And people are like, oh. And then over the years, I've had people come back and be like, oh, that worked. Thank you. Like, yeah, that was great. So I think it's just one of those, I'm passionate about health and fitness. I really enjoy it. And I just like helping people. I like seeing people grow, and, it's challenging, it can be it's a very, very challenging thing to like want to really get healthy, to lose weight, and to get, fit. And fit is all relative to that individual. To everybody's an athlete, whether you're a senior citizen, kid, whatever, to get fit. Well, it's going to look different on everybody, but to take people from wherever you're at and then to go to another level, and to go to another level to a point where it's kind of like you don't really need don't really need me, it's a beautiful thing to see that progression. And so I just enjoy it.
That's amazing, man. And you said a couple of things, and I had to let you get it out. I didn't want to cut you off no more. Now, one thing you said is you've been doing it so long. So for the record, like, let's let the listeners and viewers know, like, exactly how long have you been in your profession?
I have been watching my sugar and processed carbohydrate intake for over 20 years.
Come on, man.
I've been, I don't know if I was telling you, when we met, the keto, like, people are doing keto.
Yeah. You were telling me about that.
Keto is just shortened. It's just shortened ketosis. So a lot of people don't even realize that you're doing the ketosis diet. And the ketosis diet was actually really put out there by Dr. Atkins. So anybody doing keto, you're doing the Atkins diet. Wow. So having like this understanding of like, of food, of and being in that, being in that space. When I opened up, my shop was called Whoa, That's Low, the low carb, low sugar superstore. When I opened that up, I had family members. I had people that were like, what are you doing? People didn't even know what a carbohydrate was. Wow. Like this was so far. I mean, this was even my boxing like my boxing coach. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna open up a low carb store. He was like, what do you like low carb? What are you talking about? And then sure enough,
understand your purpose.
And then boom, it's on the news. Like,
ooh,
the Dr. Atkins or the low carb. I even had banks turn me down for loans, and literally a local bank turned me down. My family had been, because we've had the health food store, my family had been banking with them for probably, at this point, 30 years, right? So, I mean, it's me going in for the loan. You've been seeing me come in here with deposits, or like, you know who I am. You know what I mean?
Family business. You know what we do.
You know what I'm saying? Didn't understand it, right? Wow. Can't do it. Within 6 months of me opening and how it blew up, literally like the vice president of the bank came into the shop, to the health food store, and was told my grandmother, like, hey, I wasn't there. It was like, look, if your grandson needs anything, please tell him to come back. Or, at that point, we had already opened. Store was all over the news. I mean, like on TV, this and that. And I actually I got a loan through them, and I bought out a competitor. And at one point I had two locations, and I was doing all this like my mid-20s, but this was like brick and mortar retail. Yeah. But I knew where to order shelves, freezers. I grew up in all of that world,
This is so phenomenal, Curtis. Listen, you were talking about, matter of fact, you mentioned the word "is challenging" earlier. And my question was going to be, I don't even know if I need to ask it, because you've already addressed a challenge that you faced early on. And let me make sure I understood that. I like to pull out nuggets for the listeners and viewers. So here's the bank acting like they don't know you, telling you I can't do nothing for you because you're doing something different. You're doing something they ain't never seen blow up before.
Yes.
So they didn't know that it was valuable. But you said not even 6 months went by. Within 6 months, you blowing up. You all over the news. And then Mr. Banker, they all of a sudden,
hey,
remember who you are.
Bro, literally anything your grandson needs, come and see us. Hey, sure enough, I eventually pulled up and was like, hey, I'm trying to buy out a competitor. I needed the loan for, to purchase their inventory and everything, and got it. And even at this point in period in time, I didn't have braids. My brother, he was my part. He had corn. Like it's just been this, like, it was just a comedy scene going into, like, not the branch. We're going into this other building down the street that, where they bank out of. And you can tell, like, the receptionist and people like, oh, wow, they're coming to, that's the low carb guy, or the guys, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it was just that, it was something I was passionate about, gonna make happen, gonna do it. And that's kind of how I've been,
mindset.
Yeah, my whole life. Yeah.
Like your passion would not be denied. That's that purpose right there, Curtis. That purpose. Like you was, man, you had odds against you. First of all, man, it wasn't, you were doing the unpopular thing at an unpopular time. But because you were passionate about purpose, see, a lot of times we follow our passion, but we forsake our purpose, right? But you were so passionate about your purpose that you wouldn't take no for an answer. Okay, since the bank ain't gonna give me the money, I'm gonna start the business anyway. Why? Because I believe in what I'm doing. I care about what I'm doing. This business adds value to people because you looked at all the people around that look like you and I, and you said, look, we too obese, we dealing with diabetes, we got a lot of underlying health issues, and majority of them, you will find the common denominator of what we eat in it.
Right.
I'm inspired by it, man. And listen, if you're inspired, I need you to hit the thumbs up, right? I need you to hit the like button. I need you to type a comment. Look, I need you to share this with about 5 to 10 people who you want to see put their purpose over pointless excuses. I know I'm getting a lot out of this. Therefore, I know you got to be. So go ahead, hit the thumbs up, hit the likes, share it with about 10 people. But listen, Curtis, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What would you say would be the most important lessons you've learned over your career?
Well, are we talking within like business aspect, entrepreneurial aspect, health, like healthy living?
All of the above. If you can tie them all in, that's perfect. If not,
right,
pick one that means the most to you and give it to me.
Yeah, I would say so this will tie this in my book, The Itis Revealed. I have my 3 P's, which is patience, passion, and perseverance. So I would say like the perseverance aspect is we're all gonna persevere, at points of in our life. So when you look at your health and wellness, a lot of times folks will go down the road of putting this title on to be healthy, and then they're craving chicken and they want to have chicken.
Yeah.
And so the way I am is like, well, eat chicken, but you don't have to have fried chicken.
Come on, talk to me, man, because I be on that chicken, man. So please help me. If you ain't helping nobody else, help me.
Right. So you have the chicken, but what a lot of folks will do is like, I had chicken, I fell off of my diet, and now it's over, right? And then it's kind of like this constant spiral. It's a up and down, up and down. You'll start this diet, it'll go, you fall off because you had cake at your kid's birthday party, or so the perseverance aspect is one of those that I look at a lot, where if you do have a piece of cake, if you do, have that piece of chicken, it's not the end of the world.
Come on, bro.
You know what I mean? Like be mindful of it, recalibrate. Like if you had cake at lunch because you had a social event, that doesn't mean you're gonna have cake at dinner.
Come on.
And then cake the next day. So the perseverance aspect, I think is because it fits in so many facets of our life. Another thing I always will tell folks, or I always put out there, is one of my mentors would always say, little hinges swing big doors.
Wait. That's a bar, man. Run that back. Don't you dare stop. Run that back.
Little hinges swing big doors.
I love it, man. Yeah.
So, you make little tweaks to your lifestyle. You make little tweaks to your fitness. You make these little progressions that, you might not think of going from sweet tea, which when I was in Atlanta, one of my best friends, he's like my sister, we actually went to school in Italy, amazing chef. She took me to this wing spot, Crickets. Went to Crickets.
JR Crickets, because I'm from Atlanta, man.
JR Crickets.
JR Crickets, I already know.
Bro, wings are off the hook. But I asked the waitress, I was like, do you have unsweetened tea? And she looked at me.
Nah, man.
She looked at me and was just like,
Not in there.
I was like, I mean, it was like blasphemy.
Wow.
But the tweak, the little hinge, is going from sweet tea to unsweetened tea. The amount of sugar that you're eliminating. One cup, because I mean, it's not a little serving. And you got free refills wherever you go. Right. So you could look at easily 40 grams of sugar in just the drink.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So now you add French fries to that. You add this to that. So you can easily start to consume 100 grams of carb sugar in a very relatively quick time. And it's empty. It's not doing anything for you. You just want the sweetness. You just want the sugar. So the little hinge is if you go cut out sweet tea and have unsweetened tea. If you have to sweeten it, use a sugar substitute. And then there's like this whole conundrum of like, well, is Splenda safe? Is Equal safe? Is NutraSweet safe? So then you have all these other like health gurus that will, demonize sugar substitutes. There's healthy ones, there's stevia, there's all kinds of things you can do. But at the end of the day, if you're accustomed to drinking regular sweet tea, you want to now have unsweetened tea and use Splenda, I'm all for it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because of that person, where you're at in your journey, pivot to Splenda.
Talk that. Speak.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you'll see folks on Instagram. I'll see like, don't eat broccoli. And I'm just like, oh, like there might be health. There might be something to that, but that's such a hard lift. Like I just eat broccoli. You know what I'm saying? Like it's more than likely what you're eating.
Right.
To get that detailed in. Now, if you're that on point with your living and you could probably be like, I'm gonna cut out broccoli because you're dialed in. Yeah. But for the regular folks out here, to now it becomes more confusing. Well, don't eat this. We shouldn't eat this. Well, don't eat that. Well, what can I eat?
And we don't know what to eat. Right.
Come on. You're gonna eat. You gotta eat something. Yeah. And that's part of the book too. Is like I have pyramids. I've broken down foods into pyramid groups. So you have a fruit pyramid, a vegetable pyramid, a protein pyramid, a fat pyramid. And essentially, if you eat the base of these pyramids, you're good. Whether you're vegetarian, whether you're meatitarian, pescatarian, whatever you are, if you eat these bases, the carb number naturally is lower. Everything is safer. The higher up in the pyramid you go, the more unhealthier choice that you're kind of making. So to give people real feedback of like, I eat, I love to eat. You know what I mean? Like I eat, and I personally don't consume pork, but I eat chicken, I eat fish, I eat beef, I eat lamb. But I'll joke with some like vegan friends or vegetarians, like I'll eat vegan. I'm just gonna have like a really good piece of steak with
I dig
with
it,
all my vegetables and like, you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna have a good, some nice chicken, or like, some days I won't have for this meal, it might be vegetarian, but I still understand the makeup of my plate, that just because I'm not having like a ton of rice. And that's what you'll see a lot of folks will, they'll make that pivot of like, okay, I'm not eating meat anymore, but now you're just consuming so many carbohydrates.
Wow.
Because you got to eat. And now your body's going to burn through them, and then you're hungry again. Burn through them, and that's why you'll be snacking. But if you put good fat and protein in your body, you can't eat a huge bag of like macadamia nuts, but you could eat a big bag of Doritos.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because the macadamia nuts have fat, they have protein in it. It's a more hearty, food to consume. Yeah. And that's all part of like understanding food, understanding how to make like, okay, well, let me eat this instead of this. In my house, Friday nights are pizza night. I have young kids. We're going to have pizza, but we're not having pizza Saturday and then Monday. Okay. And then Wednesday.
Boundaries. Okay.
Yeah. It's and they know too, like the way my children have raised, have come up, they understand, a food label. They understand kind of like healthier, when I was a kid, like we wouldn't have like no honey crunch, no honeycomb, no Captain Crunch.
Man, no Captain Crunch. I love Captain Crunch, man.
No, that's my all-time favorite, Captain Crunch. But if we did, it was like such a big, it was a real treat.
Yeah.
And even now, like, my kids will have like, their cereal. Saturday mornings, have some cereal, but I let them know that's not your breakfast. You know what I mean? You just got up, you want to make yourself, I'm still in the bed or whatever, make some cereal. Now I'm gonna make
a little light snack.
Yeah, it's all good. Like, enjoy it. You're on, watching your, gumball or whatever you're doing, get it in. But now I'm gonna make some turkey bacon. You have some fresh fruit and some eggs. Now this is your breakfast. Put some protein, you know what I mean? Like, come on down, get some protein, get some, get something like that's actually nutritionally benefiting your body. And so as they grow up, they understand food. And that's really a thing too within the diabetes world. It's like a lot of it is really, I've done talks where I've had people like, well, diabetes in my family. So, it is what it is. I'm like, nah, the way your grandmother ate, the way your mom ate, the way you eat, the way your kids, that's what's genetically being passed down. It's not a mystery gene of diabetes. Now we can get like type 1, there's a whole nother, but typical type 1 diabetics tend to be slim. Very seldom are you going to see real overweight type 1 diabetic, because their body makes no insulin. And if they eat garbage, they could die. Wow. It's the type 2 and the pre-diabetes. And that's kind of like diabetes in my family. Now, the poor eating, the lack of movement, that's what's inherited. That's what's in your family. Wow. And that's what you then will pass down to the next generation. And then it just keeps compounding. And so my whole thing is to like, okay, this is how you live a healthy lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like, again, the little hinges, swinging big doors, little tweaks, and then you compound that though over 6 months, over a year, has a huge, huge impact. And now you're living a real healthy lifestyle versus some diet this, diet that, the what was it? The lemon. Bro, I mean, because I'm in the store, you know what I mean? Like, I'm in the store. It got to a point where like, Shorty would come in and be like, I need grape beef maple. Okay. Let me I got here you go. Cayenne, lemon, boom, boom, boom. And then you would see like, okay, are you this is like a cleanse. Wow. This ain't like how you live. You don't live on the detox. Like, come on. Cleanse detox. And then, you got to eat food again. Because if you just do the apple juice diet, I'm sure you'll probably drop weight. You know what I'm saying? If you drink nothing but apple juice, and then you're going to be starving when you're done, you're gonna be down because your body's like, yo, feed me. Man, and that, so just all of these things is I try to put, into the book where it's kind of a memoir. I have a story in there. This guy that was, he was looking for quinoa, which is quinoa, right? So he was like, hey, do you have a quinoa? And I was like, yeah, it's quinoa. I got you. Took down to the aisle where we had all the, beans and whatnot and grains. And then he was like, oh, do you eat this? And I was like, nah. He was like, and he was like overweight and not knocking anybody. Right. But then he was like, so do you eat meat? I was like, yeah. He was like, how do you eat meat? How do you work in a store like this and you eat meat? And then I'm looking at him like, bro, like, I could take you out back and like, you know what I mean? Like, handle mine. Shape. You know what I'm saying? Like, wow. Like, you shouldn't be eating this quinoa, this quinoa that you're looking for. You really shouldn't have that. You know what I mean? Like, you should be making kind of like looking at eating different food, but the judgment of like, okay, so you're a vegetarian. I don't care what you eat, but don't look at me like, how can I work in the store? And then again, like the business, person that I am growing up at that point too, I was like, I'm gonna help you buy that quinoa.
You know what I like about it?
You know what I'm saying, sir?
I love the transparency, man. Like you straightforward. Like, I love the honesty. I love the transparency. Like you just straightforward about it. You keep it real with obviously the customers. You kept it real on this interview. And I'm pretty sure you keeping it real in that book. That seems like the go-to book. One question: where can they contact you? Website, email, social media, where can they get that book?
So my Instagram, Facebook is Curtis Price Live altogether. So Curtis Price Live, Live. My website for speaking is curtispricelive.com, and the itis revealed. So it's all together. www.theitisrevealed.com is where you be able to purchase the book, as well as I have courses that I'm offering as well, mini courses, and I have a free gift for anybody. Basically, if you go to theitisrevealed.com, you'll get a freebie. I have something about saboteurs, to watch out for within your healthy kind of like journey. But yeah, Curtis Price Live, pretty much on everything. And then theitisrevealed.com.
I love it. I love it, man. One more thing. I didn't realize how long we've been on here, man. But look, I gotta ask you one more thing before you go. And I always save this question for last because somebody's watched this. Like, you've been very informative. You've been very educational. You've even been inspirational. Like, you've inspired people to take action, and you've comforted people to let them know, like, if you fall down, get up and keep moving. Now, listen, you got somebody's attention, right? But maybe it's fear. Like, maybe it's that generational hereditary way of eating that's been passed down from grandmama and them. I don't know what it is, but to that person who's watching this and they like, I hear you, Demont. I hear you, Curtis, but this is all I could do. This is the best I can do. Like, what would you say to that person before they give up on themselves? What would you say to that person?
You only have one body. You only have one body that we know of. Every 3,000 miles or so, you're going to go get a car. You're going to go get an oil change. A lot of times we'll pay more attention to our physical, our material surroundings than we do our own body. So again, little hinges swing big doors. And there's a poet that has a quote that you let your ish bubble quietly and then you blow. So with that, don't tell everybody. You don't have to tell everybody that you're drinking unsweetened tea now instead of sweet tea. This is your body. This is your journey. This is your experience of like how to live, how to eat, how to be healthy. So a lot of times, we'll want to get on that, like, I'm doing this. And then the naysayers are going to come. And they're going to come, some subconsciously, they're not even conscious of what they're doing, sabotaging you. And some might actually be sabotaging you on purpose. Food is a very powerful thing. Food is really powerful. You know what I mean? We could talk politics, we could talk sex, we could talk all stranger, like come meet somebody out, talk all kinds of stuff. But if I'm like, you shouldn't be eating them chips. Ooh, that's a problem.
You disrespected them in the major way.
I mean, I don't know what, you shouldn't really be doing, are you going to eat all of that? Are you eating? You might be throwing blows.
Wow.
Food is very, very powerful. And I go into that. We just kind of scratch the surface. I go into like fungus. We got fungus inside of us. That's why you crave sweet. Fungus releases a mycotoxin to stimulate you to feed it. An alcoholic isn't chemically dependent on beer, wine, or liquor. The alcoholic is chemically dependent on that beer, wine, or liquor converting into glucose. That's why you always see like sugar, candy at alcohol rehab centers. So you went from, if you have a drinking problem, that's one thing, but you went from rum and coke to Skittles. So the fungus is still getting fed. That's why we crave sweet. We don't crave protein. We don't crave fiber, but we'll crave sweet or salty. So I go into fungus in the book that kind of transitions into, cleansing, how to live a healthy, food, healthy lifestyle. The historical aspect, I think people were really just very different. We think, most people think of slavery in America with cotton and tobacco. That's so late. that's so after the fact. You know, what was it? 1492, 72, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Whatever that year is, the next year, the first African came to the Caribbean. So the 1400s, slavery started. America, Plymouth Rock didn't get hit for another 200 years. So the America wasn't even colonized, and the slave trade was rolling. You know what I mean? But we'll think of like tobacco, cotton, and that's America's like slavery, you know, that's America. But the slave trade was already well and rolling. And the reason it was well and rolling was because of England's consumption of sugar. And sugar is what fueled the slave trade to the Americas. So just trying to give folks just a different perspective of health, wellness, and then an actual like game plan of here's how to live a healthier lifestyle.
Listen, man, y'all heard him say it. We've just only scratched the surface. Look, we've gone significantly over our time. You got to go and get that book. Listen, man, that's your big bruh, Curtis Price. You already know me. I'm your big bruh, Demont Pope, a.k.a. Mr. Purpose Over Pointless Excuses, telling you purpose looks good on you. I see you next week. Yeah.